Hey friends, my name's Georgie, and you are listening to episode 5 of my new mini series of the Just Breathe podcast, There Will Be Blood. A series of unapologetic conversations aiming to crush as many taboos as possible around the topic of women's health. And I truly believe that storytelling, connecting, and speaking out are the best ways to do that. So today's episode is a collection of the highlights from a previous episode of the Just Breathe podcast, episode 7 with Dasha Maximov. It was such a powerful conversation and its topics were so incredibly relevant to this series, I wanted to bring it back into the spotlight. Dasha is a female biohacker and founder and CEO of WealthCo, an evidence-based women's health community to support women all over the world on their journey towards optimal health. Some of the topics we explored was the truth about the contraceptive pill, female hormones and their effect on our overall health and well-being, as well as how to truly optimize your health as a woman and how that always starts with the most important part of any practice, awareness. This was such a great conversation and I really hope you enjoy these highlights. If you seriously enjoy them, do go back and watch episode 7 of the Just Breathe podcast to get the full download of all the incredible insights Dasha had to offer. A little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Just Breathe podcast. Let's keep on building that strong, breathing community. Let's keep connecting people. Let's keep empowering people through the power of the breath. All right, let's dive right into this killer of an episode. This is episode 5 of There Will Be Blood with Dasha Maximov.
There's an incredible doctor, Dr. Stacy Sims, who coined the phrase that women are not just small men, which I think is really
that is incredible.
right. I mean, we're not just, and there used to be back in the day, if you look into the timeline of women's health and research, oftentimes they would say women's health is just bikini health, i.e., that we as women are the exact same thing as men, with the exception of anything that's underneath the bikini, i.e., your bra and your kind of
and your
panty
pants.
line.
Right.
Exactly. And so
Wow.
that's what it used to be. Now, fast forward to today, we're really starting to see that there's a change, right? And we realize that in truth, these little things called hormones, which are extremely different between men and women, actually dictate how we live life and how we experience literally everything.
Right.
So when we know and we say, okay, well, what is the main difference between men and women? Hormones. Right? And so if our hormones are different, and what do our hormones do? They're little chemical messengers that go around and they tell your body what to do, how to feel, how to act, how to interact with the world.
It's everything, right?
It's everything. It's everything. It tells you, are you hungry? Are you sleepy? Do you want to have sex? Do you, do you have energy? Do you not?
Yeah.
Those four things alone, think about how often you're dealing with that throughout the course of the day. I mean, this past year has been a lot of me kind of compiling information together and really, really honing in and reading more. I've been a sponge. I mean, COVID has been horrendous, but in that sense, I've just been a sponge, right? And that's what, at least for me, it comes down to, right? Because in truth, I mean, we can go down the route of saying that we are as individuals are not really individuals. We're kind of a host for a whole bunch of bacteria, right? But similarly, we as individuals are not individuals. We are our hormones. And so therefore, when our hormones are imbalanced, that's when we see things like PCOS, endometriosis, exhaustion. You know, that feeling like when you're around 2-3 o'clock and you just feel like you have to crash.
That slump.
That slump. That's not you. That's your hormones. That's your hormones being imbalanced, right? And so I think that, to me, what I really loved the idea is, one, if we start separating out ourselves and our hormones, then it becomes really an interesting experiment, because we start saying, oh, wait, my exhaustion is not me. It's not Georgie. It's not Dasha. It's not me, right?
Mm.
My lack of wanting to have sex is not me.
It's not.
My lack
Oh.
of, whatever it is, like these symptoms,
Mhm.
that's not me. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's not something to be, you know, fearful of.
Yeah.
It's something to say, wait, I am not my, it's actually my hormones. All of
Yeah.
these things are actually my
It's just
hormones, and
there's just an
therefore,
imbalance here.
right. And so it's separating us out from the disease, or the ailment, or the illness, or the symptoms, or, it's separating us out from what that is. And so therefore, then
Oh.
you can start saying, all right, Fab, I know that my exhaustion at 3 p.m. and wanting to just crash and take a nap, that's not me. That's my hormones being imbalanced, and I can do something about that. But I think, I talk to my girlfriends and they say, oh, well, yeah, I've had, really, I had to be away for a couple of days and just shut the world off because I had such bad PMS symptoms.
Mhm.
I'm like, what? Naturally, normally, if your hormones are balanced, you shouldn't be having such bad PMS symptoms. I literally have no issues now, right? Because I've rebalanced. My period comes and goes. Maybe it's one day where I have that crampy and that horrible feeling, but then I move on, right? I no longer have that complete exhaustion. I no longer have that dread of, oh my gosh, I can't get out of bed, right? And so to me, it's, if we're talking about PMS symptoms, or even things like, again, contraception, which is a big question for women, because again, that's hormones,
Yeah.
right? All of these things, it's how do you understand, A, whether you do have a hormonal imbalance,
Mhm.
and then B, if you do, start writing that. And
Yeah.
it's not going to happen overnight, right?
Right. Right.
It takes a couple of months. It takes a while, right?
Mhm.
But when you do, now, I'm in a place where I don't feel that yo-yo as much, right? The
Hmm.
past
Yeah.
month or so, I've noticed it to be a little bit more, because again, this past month has been a little bit more stressful.
Yeah.
But it's this beautiful thing that the body is malleable. It
Yeah.
changes, and
Yeah.
it's something that you have the power to change.
Yeah.
I wish that there was more folks kind of talking about that.
So I really wanted to pick Dash's brains about the contraceptive pill. I was on the journey at the time myself of coming off the contraceptive pill. It was causing me crazy anxiety a couple days before my period, so much so that I felt like I had zero control over my own emotions. And I know a lot of friends have experienced the same, and that some of us has almost labeled that as a normal part of the month. Dasha really opened my eyes to how little information is out there and presented to us when we're given the pill, and actually how it can often be used as a band-aid, a quick fix, without getting to the root of the problem that can usually be solved without having to take the pill. Now, of course, there are exceptions, but hopefully this little highlight gives you a little bit more of an insight into the truth about the contraceptive pill. Because I myself, I've been on that journey recently, as you know, of coming off the contraceptive pill and asking a lot of questions, which I know so many women are so confused about, in terms of whether they can trust their own bodies in terms of their periods, or because at the age of 15, 16, right, I myself as well, not even in terms of to protect myself, because I wasn't even sexually active when I was 15, 16. It was purely because I had a little bit of skin, a little bit
Okay.
of a couple spots. And so the doc said, great, here's a pill. And I've been taking that pill for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
putting that in my body, and um, have only now started to pay proper attention to what it could be doing to my body, because I'm very serious about optimizing my health. We all want to be healthy. So I'm really interested in your opinion, and I know many people are, of the contraceptive pill, and is that actually abstaining us from achieving that homeostasis, achieving that balance?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first off, kudos to you
Thank you.
to start the journey, because I think it is a journey, right?
Yeah.
Of especially something that we've been programmed to think is fantastic, that we've been taking for years,
Yeah.
and now saying, wait, kind of scratching your head and saying, wait, is this linked to XYZ other symptom that I've got,
Yeah.
right? Or starting to question our doctors. That is something that I
Yeah.
find to be a mental shift for people.
It's a big
And
mental shift. It's a
yeah.
big mental shift. Yeah, and with the link, you're completely right. I started to question the last year why I would get severe bouts of anxiety for about 48 hours
Mhm.
before I came on my period, which wasn't a real period because it was a synthetic period created by the pill. And I
Mhm.
just felt I had no control.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's typical. That's absolutely typical. So it's um I think I think when we talk about hormones, one thing just to
Hmm.
because I'll answer your question, but I think
Of
it's a
course.
convoluted question, right?
Yeah.
So I think just to ground us, one is when you are taking any sort, so hormones, right? Again, hormones, we talk hormonal. Yes, your cycle as a female shifts over the course of the month. So
Yeah.
you've got estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Women do have testosterone. We
Yeah.
just have it at much lower levels than men do.
Right.
But we do have it. So, but these hormones, it's a beautiful, beautiful cascade that happens throughout the course of the month,
Right.
right? When it's done, when it's balanced.
Right.
You need to have peaks of estrogen, you need to have troughs of estrogen, you have peaks of progesterone, which makes you feel yummy, and like, that it just makes you feel good, right?
Right.
You have testosterone, which makes you feel like you can conquer the world and
Right.
just go for it, right? And it's kind of the higher libido when
That
you,
makes sense.
right? So it's those three, and there's others involved as well, but those are the three big ones.
Right.
So when we talk about hormones, again, hormones are these chemical messengers that literally tell your body what to do. You
Right.
also have other hormones like leptin or ghrelin, which are also hormones. They're not sex hormones, but they are hormones that are impacting whether you feel hungry or whether you're saying, I'm good, I don't want to eat anything. Those are also impacted by the course of the different things that you do in life. It's impacted by light, it's impacted by sleep. I mean, there's a huge conversation to be had just on hormones, right? But the point is, and the short version of what I'm trying to say is that your hormones dictate how you experience this life, right? So if your
Yeah, it's
hormones,
huge.
if you're taking an external hormone, then you're impacting your life, right? So it's not something where people just say, oh, well, I'm going to take the pill, and it's just one fallacy is it's just kind of located for, it's just going to impact my ovaries.
Yeah,
it
it's
that's
just for my
impossible.
periods. It's just
Yeah,
for
it was
my
just for my
periods.
periods. That's impossible, right? Our bodies all cascade throughout. Your hormones go throughout your entire body, so it's not something where it just goes to your ovaries, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of the pill, I mean, my view on it is, I'm just going to be bold about it and say, if you are somebody who is looking to optimize your health and you don't need the pill, i.e., you don't need it because you are in a situation where you could potentially get, you're living on the street and you have, who knows what kind of situation you're around, and in terms of evaluating the cost
Oh
benefit,
my God, there
it's
are
better,
exceptions. There are
right?
exceptions, of
Right. It's
course.
better
That's
for you to,
important.
right.
Yeah.
So if it's one of those things where you truly do not need the pill, I would say it behooves us to get off of the pill in order to optimize our health,
Right.
right? And the reason, again, being because if you look at the literature about the pill, one, there's really not been any longitudinal study done on the pill from a woman who is starting to take it at age 15 and then going through perimenopause, menopause, and onwards. There's not been
Right.
a longitudinal study for the entire populace of that, right?
Right.
So that freaks me out.
Yeah.
Two is there have been there's an incredible book by a fantastic researcher. Her name is Dr. Sarah Hill. And she talks about specifically the birth control and the brain. So to me, I mean, talk about the fact that I love women's health and I love the brain. It's just, it's an
Right.
incredible
Yeah.
book. right? It blends both my worlds together. Now, what she talks about, a couple of things. You have to just go read the book on your own, but the synopsis is, one, she talks about how the pill does impact our HPA axis. That axis impacts how we take on stress and how we're able to be resilient to stress. So
Right.
it's not that women who are on the pill are not experiencing stress, or that the people, you are experiencing stress.
Yeah.
It's just the matter that the pill impacts your HPA axis and it overloads it such that you don't have that resilience to come back and bounce back from stress. Right. So then you're kind of overloading the entire system. And so then what they've found is there potentially could be reverberating effects longer term in terms of mental health, in terms of depression, and in terms of anxiety.
Right.
So when I see somebody who's on the pill for acne, that freaks me out. Right? Because acne, what is acne, right? Oftentimes, acne is because you've just had too much testosterone, or again, your hormones are slightly imbalanced, and that
It's
just means that,
another imbalance.
right. So we just need to fix that at the root cause, not just put a band-aid approach on it and say, I'm going to give you external hormones on top of that to then, make everything even. That does not make sense. And we need to, anybody who is below the age of 25, in my opinion, should not be on birth control. Full stop. Reason being because your brain is still developing until age 25.
Right.
So if you're adding hormones in, you're messing with the chemistry. You're messing with the chemistry of your brain, such that for the next 60 years or however long you're going to live, that could have reverberating effects on that HPA axis and on your mental health. So to me, it's a big red flag to say, oh, you have some cystic acne, or you have, slightly kind of heavy periods. Here's the pill. That implies to me that the doctor, A, may not have enough time, or B, may not be fully informed, right, about the alternatives. Because what do you look at in this life, right? What's the long-term game? And when I start thinking about me as a 15-year-old and having acne, it was the worst thing ever.
In that moment, right?
In that moment. So I get it. I absolutely get it. I'm not lacking empathy in that sense. But as a mom, or as somebody who's kind of elder, realizing that this is a short-term gain for a long-term loss, that's where I start to question it.
Responsive, but that's so interesting because you can do all the breath work you want, right? But if you're constantly putting synthetic hormones in your body, then you're almost playing a losing game, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going about such a natural practice, such as breathing, what we are born to do, yet you're not trusting your own body to operate in its natural function, which would be your hormones. Do you think we've kind of lost faith in the genius of our own bodies?
100%. 100%, unfortunately. And yes, yeah, absolutely. I think that what I've said in the past is, I think we've outsourced our health, right? We've outsourced it to the doctors, to the specialists, to the people
Handed it over.
We handed it over. Yeah. And we said, okay, well, I don't know how this body works, but he does, because he has an MD behind his name, or she has an MD behind her name, and she has a white lab coat, right? We've given that off. But in truth, the only person who's ever going to know what works and doesn't work is you, because you have to live in this body.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, when I went to all that, that broke really quickly for me when I went to all these doctors, and they would say, your tests are fine, but I was still waking up with chronic headaches every day. I think it's difficult for people to get to that unless they've had a major issue or a major failure of the medical system. But yeah, oftentimes doctors, and there's some fantastic doctors out there, don't get me wrong.
I was going to say, I think it's important to say that neither of us are downing doctors here, that doctors and medical professionals do incredible work, but how on earth could you expect a doctor to know the intricacy of every single person's individual? It's impossible, right? It's an impossible task.
Right. And I think what I would say I'm kind of calling people to is that let's go back to that place of intuition, And let's go back to that place of really understanding this body rather than just putting a band-aid on it. And what I mean by that is, and the problem with it is that it takes time and effort to figure that out, right? So for me, for example, in terms of birth control, I've been off of it for years. And I use the fertility awareness method, which once you understand it, it's really easy and it works and it's fantastic. But when you're first starting out, it does take time and effort. And it is weird to say, oh, wait, there are certain weeks in the month that because my hormones aren't unnaturally balanced in the, with the pill, I am going to have fluctuations.
Right.
And that's actually a beautiful thing. So I can now plan and say, this week, I am going to be a little bit more reserved or calm, or, I'm not going to get a whole lot done, maybe, but I am going to be in a much more creative space. I'm going to be much more in a strategic place to be thinking longer term, right?
Sounds like you're so much more than aware. You are taking responsibility for your own menstrual cycle rather than, as you say, handing it over to someone else to put a band-aid on, when actually it's having a period is not a problem. Right?
No. I mean, again, I enjoy having it, right? And I know that's a crazy thing to even say, but it's because it's for me, it's a monthly report card, right, of my health. And so if we're thinking about health optimization, women have that, guys don't. We're in a good position where we have something that it comes every single month, or it should come every single month, and it shares and tells you about your health. Right? It tells you, are you eating the right foods? Are you stressed? Are you drinking enough liquids? It tells you, it has these, what's the color of it? What's the consistency? How are your cramps, right? Your cramps can also tell you things. But again, that's that intuition where, okay, you're going to have to do this month after month after month and see what the changes are going to be. I know for a fact that if I have dairy or sugar 2 weeks, or kind of day 7, like the last 7 days of my cycle before my period's going to be horrendous. I think it's a power, honestly.
Really?
I think it is I do, and this is not the hippy dippy side. I actually do very much think that having a cycle, having a proper cycle, knowing your cycle is a superpower, because when we are, that is a natural way of how we as women should be living. Anything else other than that is a band-aid, and it's not, and it's ultimately going to have reverberating effects on something else down the line. Full stop, right? So if you're somebody who has something that's really tough, PCOS or endometriosis, you have my attention, you have my pain, right? I get it. It is not an easy thing. And it is very, very, very easy to when a doctor says, I feel I know what you've got, and here's a pill, and the pill takes these things away. It takes away the hair on your face, takes away the hair on your nipples, it takes away the pain during your period. I understand. I absolutely understand that it is a fix.
Right.
The question then to me, though, it just becomes, okay, if that fits for now as a short-term fix, fantastic. If you need to get through a year, 2 years, fine. But as you start unpeeling that layers of health, endometriosis and PCOS do not need to be played around with the pill. Full stop. There's an incredible book called 8 Steps to PCOS by Dr. Fiona McCulloch.
Wow.
She's incredible. She breaks down PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. She breaks it down into 4 different types. She talks about how insulin and sugar impacts it. She talks about, absolutely breaks it down. And she is a medically trained doctor, right? So this is not woo-woo. This is not hippie. This is somebody who's saying you can take control of your health, right? And so I think circling back, do I think that more women need to be doing, understanding their cycle? I think if you consider yourself somebody who is in health, and if you don't understand your cycle, then you've got some homework to do.